Welcome to Cheating Tales Lab. We're grateful you've chosen to join us today. Tell us, which part of the world are you watching from? Big city? Small town? Country? We'd love to know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Blood and Concrete. Wade Hastings stood at the window of his downtown office, watching the city he'd conquered brick by brick. Unlike the Silver Spoon executives populating the neighboring towers, Wade had built Hastings Security Solutions from nothing but grit and calculated risks. The son of a construction worker who died on a poorly regulated job site, Wade had turned his childhood trauma into a ruthless drive that propelled him from community college to owning the most sophisticated security firm in the Midwest. "Mr. Hastings, your 2 o'clock is here," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Wade straightened his tie, custom-made like everything else in his life. At 42, he maintained the physique of a man who never forgot where he came from, broad-shouldered, solid, with hands that could still break concrete blocks from his martial arts training. "Send him in, Lena." The door opened to reveal Patrick Sullivan, the latest trust fund kid looking to secure his family's estate. Wade had met Brooke Sullivan at a charity gala 7 years ago, where the Powell family's youngest daughter had been slumming it with the self-made crowd. Her father, Terrence Powell, heir to the Powell banking fortune, had nearly had an aneurysm when Wade and Brooke started dating. "She needs someone stable," Terrence had said at their engagement dinner, not bothering to lower his voice. "Not some thug who got lucky in business." Wade had simply smiled, knowing that men like Terrence never understood that true power wasn't inherited, it was built. And Wade had built an empire that now protected half the city's elite, including, ironically, many of Terrence's banking clients. Marriage to Brooke had given Wade social legitimacy, but it had never given him what he truly wanted: respect from the Powell family. For 7 years, he'd played the role of devoted husband, attending their sterile society functions, enduring their thinly veiled contempt. "Mr. Hastings, my grandfather speaks highly of your work," Patrick said, extending a soft hand that Wade knew had never seen a callus. "Your grandfather is a wise man," Wade replied, thinking of how Old Man Sullivan had been the first of the city's elite to recognize Wade's potential. "Now, tell me what keeps you up at night." As Patrick rattled off concerns about his family's new lake house, Wade's phone buzzed with a text from his right-hand man, Dominic Reeves. "We need to talk. Found something on the Powell surveillance." Wade's jaw tightened imperceptibly. 6 months ago, he'd installed security at his in-laws' estate as an anniversary gift to Brooke. What Terrence didn't know was that Wade had instructed Dominic to include special monitoring features. Not because Wade was paranoid, because he was always prepared. "Excuse me one moment," Wade said to Patrick. "My associate has a pressing matter." He stepped out, calling Dominic immediately. "What did you find?" "Boss, you're not going to like this. I was reviewing the footage from last week when you were in Tokyo. Brooke visited her parents, but she wasn't alone." "Who was she with?" Wade's voice was calm, belying the sudden coldness spreading through his chest. "Nolan Bradford, your new head of operations." Wade's mind flashed to the young ex-military officer he'd hired 3 months ago. Talented, hungry, reminded Wade of himself 20 years ago. He'd fast-tracked Nolan's career, even invited him to dinner at their home. "Send me the footage. I'll finish with Sullivan and call you back." Returning to his office, Wade completed the meeting with the same precision and charm he always displayed. Nobody would have guessed that beneath his collected exterior, gears were already turning, mapping out possibilities, consequences, and ultimately, retribution. That night, in his home office, Wade reviewed the footage. The timestamps showed Brooke and Nolan entering his in-laws' guest house. They didn't emerge for 2 hours. When they did, Brooke straightened her dress while Nolan zipped his pants. Wade didn't rage. He didn't break things. He sat perfectly still, watching the footage for more times. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. "Dominic, I need complete surveillance on my wife and Nolan Bradford. Every text, call, email. Every place they go, everyone they talk to. Consider it done." "What are you thinking, boss?" "I'm thinking it's time the Powells learned what happens when you underestimate Wade Hastings." Chapter 2. Paper Trails. 3 weeks of surveillance revealed an affair that had been going on for nearly 6 months. Wade watched each piece of evidence with detached curiosity, studying how Brooke, his wife of 7 years, transformed into a different person with Nolan. More animated, more alive, more stupid, Their text messages exposed not just a physical affair, but a growing conspiracy. Nolan had applied to Hastings Security specifically to get close to Wade. Their pillow talk included discussions of Wade's business vulnerabilities, his clients, his security protocols. "Your husband built the company on instinct and muscle," Nolan had written. "We can build something better with your family's connections and my expertise. Once we have enough on him, we can push him out completely." Wade noted with clinical interest how Brooke had responded enthusiastically. The woman who had shared his bed, who had sworn vows, was systematically working to destroy everything he'd built. Most telling was the discovery that the entire Powell family wasn't just aware of the affair, they were actively facilitating it. Brooke's sister Marissa had covered for her multiple times. Her mother Vivian had conveniently invited Nolan to family gatherings when Wade was traveling. And Terrence Powell had met privately with Nolan 3 times, clearly plotting something beyond a simple affair. Wade's gathering of intelligence was interrupted by an unwelcome call from his father-in-law. "Wade, it's Terrence. Vivian's birthday dinner is next weekend. Family only. Of course. What time should we arrive?" A pause. "Actually, Brooke mentioned you're very busy with work. No need to feel obligated to attend." Wade's voice remained pleasant. "Nonsense. I wouldn't miss it." "Look," Terrence's voice hardened. "You're an embarrassment. Don't come to the party." The line went dead. That evening, Wade noticed Brooke typing furiously on her phone. When she saw him watching, she quickly put it down. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Just work stuff," she lied smoothly. "By the way, Mom's birthday dinner is next Saturday. I didn't send you an invitation because Dad said it's just immediate family this time. You don't mind, do you? I know how boring you find these things." Wade smiled warmly. "Whatever makes you happy, honey." Later, reviewing their surveillance, he saw her message to Nolan. "Dad told Wade not to come. You're all set to attend as my +1. Everyone will be there." Wade leaned back in his chair, finally allowing himself a genuine smile. So the entire Powell family would be present, plus his traitorous employee, all believing Wade was ignorant of their scheme. It would be the perfect venue for what he had planned. Chapter 3. The Architect. While Brooke believed he was on a business trip to Detroit, Wade was actually meeting with his most trusted allies in a secure location across town. Present were Dominic, his head of security, Layla Nash, his brilliant legal counsel who'd escaped an abusive marriage, and Santos Vega, a computer expert whose talents extended well beyond the legitimate. "They've created a paper trail," Wade explained, spreading documents across the table. "Corporate espionage. Nolan's been copying classified client files and security protocols. With Terrence Powell's banking connections, they could poach half our clients within 6 months. Why not just confront them now?" Santos asked. "We have enough evidence to bury Bradford in legal problems." Wade shook his head. "This isn't just about Nolan or even Brooke. The Powells have been waiting for an opportunity to push me out since day one. I want them all exposed." "What's your play?" Layla asked, her legal mind already calculating angles. "Vivian Powell's birthday party. The whole family will be there, plus Nolan as Brooke's guest. They think I'm uninvited and unaware." Wade's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm going to attend anyway." "That's it." Dominic looked disappointed. "We just walk in and surprise them?" "No," Wade said. "Before that, we're going to make some arrangements. Santos, I need you to create a special access point in our company database. Make it look like Nolan found a backdoor. Plant some falsified client information that would be particularly valuable to the Powells." Setting a trap, Santos nodded appreciatively. "Exactly. Layla, prepare internal documents transferring interim company control to Dominic in the event of my incapacitation. Make it look rushed, like I suspected something but didn't have time to finalize it." "You think they're planning something beyond pushing you out of the company?" Layla asked sharply. Wade's expression darkened. "Terrence Powell once told me men like me should know their place. I think they're planning to destroy me completely, professionally and personally." "What about me?" Dominic asked. "I need you to approach Nolan. Tell him you've become dissatisfied with my leadership. Hint that you might be willing to support changes in the company. See what he offers you." For the next 3 days, Wade's team executed their assignments with precision. Santos created the digital trap, Layla prepared the legal countermeasures, and Dominic reported that Nolan had eagerly taken the bait, offering him a senior position when the transition happened. The day before Vivian's birthday, Wade received a final confirmation from Dominic that all the Powells, including extended family, would be attending. Nolan had been officially invited as Brooke's guest. The family was celebrating not just Vivian's birthday, but also what Terrence called a new chapter for the family business. Wade spent that evening in his home gym, methodically working the heavy bag until his knuckles bled through the wrapping. With each strike, he thought of a different betrayal: Brooke's lies, Nolan's theft, Terrence's contempt. The next evening, as Brooke dressed for her mother's party, Wade kissed her cheek. "You look beautiful," he said sincerely. "Give your mother my best." "I will," she replied, her eyes not quite meeting his. "Don't wait up." "I wouldn't dream of it," Wade said, watching his wife leave to join his enemies, none of them realizing they were walking into an architect's carefully designed demolition. Chapter 4: Uninvited. The Powell estate sprawled across 3 manicured acres in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. As Wade pulled his Aston Martin through the gates, he nodded to the security guard, one of his own employees who had been instructed to let him pass without alerting the family. Inside his jacket pocket was a small device Santos had prepared, a signal disruptor that would temporarily freeze all security cameras in the house once activated. In his other pocket was a USB drive containing everything he'd discovered about the conspiracy against him. Wade checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. His tailored suit, his composed expression, nothing betrayed the storm raging within. He had allotted exactly 45 minutes for what he was about to do. Any longer would be indulgent, any shorter wouldn't be satisfying enough. The front door was unlocked. Wade could hear laughter and classical music drifting from the main dining room. He moved silently through the house he knew intimately, having designed its security system himself. As he approached the dining room, he activated the signal disruptor. The red lights on the security cameras blinked out. He paused at the entrance, surveying the scene. Terrence sat at the head of the table, raising a toast. Vivian beamed beside him. Brooke sat halfway down, her hand resting intimately on Nolan's arm. Marissa and her husband Thomas were there, along with Terrence's brother Philip and his wife. 12 people in total, all connected by blood, marriage, or conspiracy. None of them noticed Wade until he stepped fully into the doorway. Brooke saw him first. The color drained from her face. "Wade, what are you doing here?" The room fell silent as every head turned. Wade smiled pleasantly. "I couldn't miss my mother-in-law's birthday. I brought a gift." He walked slowly to the table, placing a small wrapped box in front of Vivian. "Go ahead, open it." Vivian's hands trembled slightly as she unwrapped the package, revealing a velvet jewelry box. Inside was an exquisite diamond pendant. "It's beautiful," she whispered, confusion evident in her voice. "Only the best for family," Wade said, his gaze sweeping the table before landing on Nolan. "Isn't that right, Nolan?" The younger man shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Hastings, I didn't expect to see you tonight." Wade maintained his smile. "Clearly, I believe this is the first time my wife has brought you to a family function." "Dad said it was family only," Brooke interjected, her voice higher than normal. "I thought that I wouldn't find out my head of operations was fucking my wife." Wade's voice remained conversational, causing several guests to gasp. "Or that he was stealing my company's security protocols with your father's assistance?" Terrence Powell stood abruptly. "That's enough. You're drunk or delusional. I'm calling security. Your security works for me, remember?" Wade reminded him. "But please, don't let me interrupt the celebration. I understand there's more than just Vivian's birthday being commemorated tonight. Something about a new chapter for the family business." Nolan suddenly looked ill. Terrence's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Wade turned to face Nolan directly. "I have a question, though. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when you accessed our client database through the backdoor Santos created? The one that recorded everything you downloaded?" Nolan's eyes widened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Then perhaps you can explain why you've met with my father-in-law 3 times in the past month to discuss transferring Hastings' security contracts to Powell-backed ventures." Brooke stood up. "Wade, you're embarrassing yourself. Please leave." "I'm embarrassing myself?" Wade repeated softly. He pulled out his phone and played an audio recording, Brooke's voice, breathless, telling Nolan how they'd push Wade out, take the company, how her father had always said Wade didn't deserve his success. The room grew deadly quiet. Marissa broke the silence. "Brooke, you said he didn't suspect anything. And my sister-in-law's boyfriend looked at me and said, "Hi, boss," Wade continued, gesturing to Nolan. The room froze. Their masks fell. He locked eyes with each person at the table, one by one. "You all thought you were so clever." The self-made man too busy building his empire to notice the vipers in his own house. Terrence found his voice. "If you have evidence of corporate espionage, take it to the authorities. Otherwise, get out of my house." "Oh, I have evidence," Wade confirmed. "But I'm not going to the authorities. Not yet." He placed the USB drive on the table. "This contains everything. The affair, the corporate theft, the conspiracy. Copies have been sent to my attorneys and several trusted associates, to be released if anything happens to me." Wade straightened his tie and buttoned his jacket. "You have 24 hours to return everything you've stolen and resign from my company, Nolan. As for the rest of you," his gaze swept across the Powell family, "I'll be in touch individually." He turned to leave, then paused. "Happy birthday, Vivian. The diamond is real, unlike your daughter's marriage vows." As Wade walked out, the shock behind him exploded into chaos. Accusations, denials, Brooke's sobs. He didn't look back. In the car, he called Dominic. "It's done. Move to Phase 2. Chapter 5, Dominoes. The day after Vivian Powell's birthday party, Wade worked from his downtown penthouse rather than his office. The space was minimalist and secure, a command center from which he could monitor the fallout of his appearance at the Powell estate. On multiple screens, Wade watched various members of the conspiracy scramble. Nolan had cleared out his desk at Hastings Security at dawn, taking nothing with him. Brooke had spent the night at her parents' house and was currently in Terrence's home office, engaged in a heated discussion with her father and Nolan. Wade took a sip of his coffee as Dominic entered with a report. "Nolan tried to access his offshore account this morning," Dominic said. "He found it empty." As expected, Wade nodded. "And the Powells?" "Terrence has called an emergency meeting with his bank's board of directors. He's trying to liquidate assets." "Too late," Wade commented. Through carefully cultivated relationships with several board members at Powell Banking, he'd arranged for any unusual transactions to be flagged and delayed for regulatory review. Brooke, she's called 3 divorce attorneys already. All of them mysteriously had conflicts of interest that prevented them from taking her case. Wade allowed himself a small smile. Layla had been thorough in her outreach to the city's top divorce attorneys over the past week. His phone rang, Brooke calling for the 12th time since last night. He finally answered, putting her on speaker. "Wade, we need to talk." Her voice was raw from crying. "What happened last night? It's not what you think." "Really?" "Because I think my wife has been sleeping with my employee for 6 months while planning to steal my company. I think her father facilitated corporate espionage. I think her entire family knew and supported this betrayal. It wasn't like that. Nolan and it just happened. The business stuff, that was more his idea and Daddy's. I never wanted to hurt you." "Interesting. That contradicts the recording where you said, and I quote, 'Wade never belonged in our world. Once he's gone, everything will be as it should be.'" Silence on the line. "What do you want?" Brooke finally asked, her voice hardening. "Money? The house. What I want isn't something you can give me, Brooke. But don't worry, you'll understand soon enough. As for the divorce, I've already filed the paperwork. Your belongings will be packed and sent to your parents' house by this evening. You can't just... I already have. Goodbye, Brooke." Wade hung up and turned to Dominic. "How are we doing with the board members?" 5 have confirmed they'll vote with us. That's the majority we need." Wade nodded. Terrence Powell's position as chairman of Powell Banking had always been his pride and source of power. By tomorrow, that position would belong to someone else, someone who owed Wade a significant favor. And Nolan's military contacts. "We've sent the evidence of his corporate espionage to his former commanding officer. His security clearance review has been flagged. He won't be getting any government contracts." Wade checked his watch. "It's time for my meeting with Philip Powell." Terrence's younger brother had always lived in his shadow, given fewer responsibilities at the bank despite his sharper financial mind. Wade had cultivated a quiet relationship with Philip over the years, recognizing a potential ally. Philip arrived at the penthouse looking nervous but determined. "They're in a complete panic," he confirmed without preamble. "Terrence is trying to claim you fabricated everything, but Brooke admitted the affair to Vivian. Nolan's denying the corporate espionage, but he can't explain how client information ended up on his personal devices." "And your position?" Philip's expression hardened. I told you years ago that Terrence would never accept you, no matter how successful you became. I warned Brooke that her father was using her to get at your company. Nobody listened. They're listening now, Wade observed. Are you prepared for what happens next? Once you take Terrence's position, there's no going back. Your brother will never forgive you. My brother has exploited and undermined me for 30 years, Philip replied. I think I can live without his forgiveness. Wade nodded. Then we proceed as planned. By this time tomorrow, you'll be chairman of Powell Banking. All I ask is that you remember who helped you get there. After Philip left, Wade received a text from Layla. Judge Goldman signed the divorce papers. Express processing as requested. Brooke gets nothing. Within 24 hours of his appearance at Vivian's birthday party, Wade had systematically dismantled the lives of everyone who had conspired against him. Nolan was unemployable in the security industry. Brooke was divorcing him, but on his terms. Terrence was about to lose control of his family's bank to his younger brother. But Wade wasn't finished. These were merely the first dominoes to fall. Chapter 6. Checkmate. 1 week after the confrontation at Vivian Powell's birthday party, Wade sat in the conference room of Hastings Security, reviewing the quarterly reports. To an outside observer, he appeared to be conducting business as usual. In reality, he was waiting. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Hastings, Brooke is here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment. Send her in, Lena. Brooke entered, a shadow of her former polished self. Her eyes were puffy from crying. Her designer outfit wrinkled, as if she'd slept in it. You've destroyed everything, she said without preamble. Wade gestured for her to sit. I've done nothing but expose what was already there. Philip has taken control of the bank. Daddy's having a medical evaluation to determine if he's mentally fit to remain on the board. Our family is falling apart. Your family was already broken, Brooke. You just maintained a prettier facade than most. She leaned forward desperately. Wade, I know I made a terrible mistake with Nolan. But what you're doing goes beyond revenge for an affair. You're systematically dismantling my entire family. No, Wade corrected her. Your father tried to dismantle everything I built. You all participated willingly. I'm simply returning the favor. What do you want from me? Tears streamed down her face. I've lost everything. My husband, my home, my family's respect. What more do you want? Wade studied her for a moment. Do you remember what your father said to me the night before our wedding? He took me aside and told me I would never be good enough for you or your family. That no matter how successful I became, I would always be trash who got lucky. Brooke looked away, unable to meet his gaze. For 7 years, I tolerated the subtle insults, the condescension, the way your family treated me like an embarrassing secret. I did it because I loved you. Wade's voice remained calm. But you never saw me as your equal, did you? I was just a placeholder until something better came along. That's not true, she whispered. It is. And that's why what I want from you is something you can't give, genuine remorse. Not for getting caught, but for who you are. Wade pressed a button on his desk phone. Lena, please send in Mr. Reeves. Dominic entered carrying a folder, which he placed in front of Brooke. What's this? She asked. Access to a bank account containing $5 million, Wade explained. Enough for you to start over somewhere far from here. In exchange, you'll sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding our marriage and divorce. Brooke stared at the documents in disbelief. You're paying me off? I'm cutting you loose. You've lost your family's status, your home, and your reputation in this city. You can stay and watch as I continue dismantling what's left of the Powell legacy, or you can take this opportunity and disappear. And if I refuse? Wade's expression didn't change. Then I'll release the full recording of you discussing with Nolan how you married me for my potential and planned to divorce me once you'd upgraded. I'm sure the society pages would find that fascinating. Brooke's hand trembled as she signed the papers. You really are a monster. No, Wade corrected her. I'm exactly what your father always feared. Someone who couldn't be bought, bullied, or broken. After she left, Dominic raised an eyebrow. $5 million is generous for someone who betrayed you. It's not generosity, Wade explained. It's insurance. With Brooke gone, the Powells lose their strongest emotional leverage against me. Speaking of the Powells, Philip called. The board voted unanimously to remove Terrence as chairman. He's been offered early retirement with a significantly reduced pension. Wade nodded. And Nolan? Found trying to leave the country last night. Customs detained him based on the security flag we arranged. They found the stolen client data on his laptop. Make sure the evidence reaches the federal prosecutor's office. Already done. Dominic hesitated. Boss, how far are we taking this? Wade looked out at the city skyline, the same view he'd had when he first learned of the betrayal. Until there's nothing left of what they tried to take from me. That evening, Wade received a call from Philip Powell. It's done, Philip said. Terrence has been removed from all positions of authority at the bank. The official story is that he's taking medical leave for exhaustion, but everyone knows the truth. And your position is secure? Yes. The board voted unanimously to confirm me as chairman. They're relieved, honestly. Terrence has been making increasingly erratic decisions for months. Good. And the other matter we discussed? The audit of Terrence's personal financial dealings has begun. Initial findings suggest he's been using bank resources for personal investments for years. The regulatory authorities have been quietly notified. Excellent. Keep me informed. Wade hung up and poured himself a glass of scotch. Phase 2 was complete. Brooke was exiled with a golden parachute and an ironclad NDA. Nolan faced federal charges for corporate espionage. Terrence had lost control of his family's bank and would soon face financial ruin and possibly criminal charges. Yet Wade felt no satisfaction, only a cold clarity about what remained to be done. The final phase would ensure that none of them ever recovered from what they had tried to do to him. Wade pulled out his phone and sent a text to Santos. Begin the final phase. Chapter 7. Scorched Earth. 3 months after Vivian Powell's fateful birthday party, Wade sat in the visitors area of the Federal Detention Center, watching Nolan Bradford being led and wearing an orange jumpsuit. The once confident security expert had lost weight, his eyes darting nervously around the room. You look terrible, Wade observed as Nolan sat down across from him. What do you want? Nolan's voice was hoarse. Haven't you done enough? Enough, Wade repeated. You were in my home. You slept with my wife. You tried to steal my company. And you think I've done enough? The prosecutor is seeking 15 years, Nolan said bitterly. I'll lose my military pension. My reputation is destroyed. What more do you want? Wade leaned forward. I want you to understand why this happened. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the arrogance. You and the Powells thought you were smarter than me. That I wouldn't notice, wouldn't fight back. So this is about your ego? No. It's about consequences. Actions have them. You're experiencing yours. Wade slid a document across the table. This is a modified plea agreement. My attorneys have discussed it with the prosecutor. Nolan scanned the document, his expression shifting from confusion to desperate hope. 5 years instead of 15? Possibility of parole after 3? Why would you do this? Because prison is just the beginning of your punishment, Nolan. When you get out, you'll have nothing. No career, no reputation, no future in security. You'll live the rest of your life knowing you had everything and threw it away because you underestimated me. Nolan swallowed hard. And what do you want in return? A full confession implicating Terrence Powell in the conspiracy. Every detail, every meeting, every plan you discussed. He'll come after me. He can't. He's facing his own legal problems. Wade stood up. Consider carefully, Nolan. 15 years is a long time to regret your poor decisions. Later that day, Wade received confirmation that Nolan had signed the plea agreement and provided a detailed statement about Terrence Powell's involvement in the corporate espionage scheme. Wade forwarded the confession to Philip Powell, who responded immediately. This is exactly what we needed. The board has frozen all of Terrence's assets pending investigation. He's effectively bankrupt. Meanwhile, reports from Wade's surveillance team confirmed that Brooke had used her settlement to purchase a small property in Arizona, far from her former social circles. Her Instagram account, once filled with society events and luxury vacations, had been deleted. According to Wade's sources, she was working as an assistant in a real estate office, using her maiden name. She actually took a job, Dominic remarked when he delivered the report. Never thought I'd see that. People adapt when they have no choice, Wade replied. What about Vivian? Selling her jewelry collection to cover basic expenses. The divorce from Terrence is getting ugly. She's claiming she knew nothing about his financial improprieties. And Marissa? Her husband Thomas left her when the Powell fortune began to crumble. She's moved in with a cousin in Chicago. Wade nodded, mentally checking off another name on his list. That leaves only Terrence himself. 3 days later, Wade arrived at what remained of the Powell estate. Once an immaculate showcase of old money, The property now showed signs of neglect. Untrimmed hedges, newspapers piling up at the gate. The security guard was gone, replaced by a simple electronic keypad that Wade easily bypassed. He found Terrence in his study, surrounded by empty liquor bottles and financial statements. The once imposing patriarch had aged a decade in 3 months, his skin sallow, his hands trembling slightly as he looked up at Wade's arrival. "Come to gloat." Terrence slurred. "I came to deliver this personally." Wade placed a thick envelope on the desk. "Notice of foreclosure on this property. The bank is calling in your loans. Philip can't do this to me. This house has been in our family for generations. Philip didn't do this. I did. I bought your debt from the bank. Every mortgage, every loan, every credit line." Terrence stared in disbelief. "That's impossible. Even you don't have that kind of money." "I leveraged everything I own," Wade admitted. "Because watching you lose everything is worth it." Terrence lunged suddenly, grabbing a letter opener from his desk and swinging wildly at Wade, who easily sidestepped the attack and disarmed the older man with a practiced move. Terrence collapsed back into his chair, breathing heavily. "Why?" he demanded. "You've destroyed my family, my legacy, my reputation. Isn't that enough revenge for an affair?" "This was never just about the affair," Wade said calmly. "This was about you trying to destroy what I built because you couldn't stand that someone like me succeeded without your blessing." Wade placed a recorder on the desk and played Terrence's own voice. "Once we have control of his security protocols, we'll have access to his entire client list. Within a year, we can strip Hastings' security of its major clients. The construction worker's son will be back where he belongs, with nothing." Terrence's face contorted with hatred. "You were never good enough for my daughter or my family." "Maybe not," Wade agreed. "But I was smart enough to take everything from you." He picked up the recorder. "You have 48 hours to vacate this property. Whatever you can carry, you can keep. The rest will be auctioned." "Where am I supposed to go?" Terrence's voice cracked with the first hint of real fear. "That's not my concern. But I hear Arizona is nice this time of year. Perhaps Brooke will take you in." Wade turned to leave, then paused. "One last thing. Federal agents will be here tomorrow with a warrant regarding your involvement in corporate espionage. I'd suggest having a lawyer present, but I doubt you can afford one anymore." As Wade walked out of the Powell estate for the final time, he felt no triumph, no joy, only the cold satisfaction of completed work. In the span of 3 months, he had systematically dismantled the Powell family from the inside out. Brooke exiled and working a menial job. Nolan imprisoned. Vivian selling her precious jewels. Marissa abandoned by her opportunistic husband. And finally, Terrence, broken, bankrupt, and facing criminal charges. Only Philip remained, now chairman of what was left of Powell Banking, a position he would hold only as long as he remained useful to Wade's purposes. In his car, Wade called Dominic. "It's done. All of it. What now, boss?" Wade looked back at the house that had symbolized everything he could never be in the Powell's eyes. "Now we rebuild. Stronger than before." Chapter 8. Ashes and Iron. 6 months after his confrontation with Terrence Powell, Wade stood in the penthouse office of Hastings Securities' new headquarters, a gleaming tower that overshadowed the financial district. The company had not merely survived the attempted takeover. It had thrived, expanding into new security sectors and acquiring 3 smaller firms. The corporate restructuring had been brutal but effective. Any employee with connections to Nolan Bradford had been terminated. Client protocols had been completely overhauled. Wade had personally met with each major client to ensure their continued confidence in the company. "The Singapore contract is finalized," Dominic reported, entering with a stack of documents. "That puts us in 7 countries now." Wade nodded, signing the papers. "And the Powell banking situation?" "Philip has done exactly as instructed. The bank has been quietly divested of its riskier assets. Stock value has stabilized. Your ownership stake is now at 30%. Good. And our former family members." Dominic handed over a thin file. Terrence Powell pleaded guilty to reduced charges of conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. He'll serve 18 months in a minimum security facility, followed by 3 years of probation. Vivian has moved in with a distant cousin in Florida. Marissa is working as a retail associate in Chicago. And Brooke, still in Arizona. She's applied for a real estate license. According to our sources, she's dating the owner of the agency, a divorced man with 3 kids. Wade closed the file without comment. The systematic destruction of the Powell family was complete, yet he felt only emptiness where satisfaction should have been. That evening, as Wade worked late in his office, his assistant announced an unexpected visitor, Philip Powell. The new chairman of Powell Banking looked uncomfortable as he entered Wade's office. Once Terrence's overlooked younger brother, Philip now carried himself with the confidence of a man who had finally stepped out of a shadow. "I received your message about divesting my ownership stake in the bank," Philip said without preamble. "I thought we had an understanding." "We did," Wade confirmed. "You helped me destroy your brother, and I helped you take his position. That arrangement has reached its natural conclusion. So, I was just another pawn in your game?" "Everyone was a pawn, Philip. Some were just more useful than others." Philip's expression hardened. "And what happens if I refuse to sell my stake in the bank?" Wade smiled thinly. "Then I release evidence showing you knew about your brother's illegal activities years before I exposed them. The board would have no choice but to remove you as well. You really are a ruthless bastard." "I'm what your family made me," Wade corrected him. "You Powell spent years treating me like an outsider, an embarrassment who married above his station. When your brother and my wife tried to take everything from me, they taught me a valuable lesson about family loyalty." Philip stared at him for a long moment. "What happens to the bank after I'm gone?" "It continues. The Powell name remains. But the control returns to where it belongs, with people who understand that power isn't inherited, it's earned." After Philip left, Wade stayed in his office, watching the city lights emerge as darkness fell. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's Brooke. I heard about Daddy's plea deal. Is this finally over?" Wade considered ignoring the message. Instead, he replied, "It's been over for months. You just didn't realize it." Her response came quickly. "I'm sorry. For everything. I know that doesn't change anything, but I needed to say it." Wade didn't reply. There was nothing left to say to the woman who had once been his wife. The Brooke he had married, or thought he had married, had never really existed. Later that night, in his new home, a fortress-like mansion overlooking the lake, Wade reviewed the final reports on the Powell family's downfall. Every detail meticulously documented, every retaliation precisely calibrated to the betrayal. Dominic poured 2 glasses of scotch, handing one to Wade. "To victory," he toasted. Wade didn't lift his glass. "There's no victory here, Dom. Only consequences." "What do you mean?" "You destroyed everyone who betrayed you. You've expanded the company. You're more powerful than ever. And completely alone," Wade observed. "The Powells taught me that family can't be trusted. Brooke taught me that love is just a convenient lie. Nolan taught me that loyalty can be bought." "So what now?" Dominic asked. "You've gotten your revenge. What's next?" Wade looked out at the city he'd conquered twice, first through ambition, then through vengeance. "Now we make sure it never happens again. No one gets close enough to betray me. No one gets another chance to take what's mine." "Sounds lonely," Dominic observed. "Power always is," Wade replied, finally lifting his glass. "To consequences." Chapter 9, Iron Throne. 1 year to the day after Wade Hastings had walked uninvited into Vivian Powell's birthday party, he stood at the window of his expanded empire's headquarters, surveying a city that now bent to his will. Hastings' security had tripled in size, absorbing smaller competitors and expanding internationally. Powell Banking existed in name only, its assets redistributed, its board replaced with Wade's allies. The Powell family had been scattered to the winds. Terrence, recently released from his shortened prison sentence, now lived in a modest apartment in Florida near Vivian, both of them relying on a small stipend Wade allowed them through a series of shell companies. Marissa had remarried, a middle manager at a retail chain, a far cry from her socialite days. Brooke had completed her transformation from society wife to working-class single woman, her real estate career modestly successful in her small Arizona town. Only Philip Powell had maintained some semblance of his former life, having negotiated a settlement that allowed him to retire comfortably in exchange for his complete withdrawal from the financial world. "Mr. Hastings, your 4 o'clock is here," his new assistant announced through the intercom. Wade turned from the window. "Send them in." A young couple entered, the man confident but deferential, the woman elegant and poised. Thomas and Rebecca Carlyle, newlyweds and heirs to the Carlyle Hotel fortune, seeking Hastings Securities services for their global properties. Mr. Hastings, Thomas extended his hand. Thank you for meeting with us personally. Your reputation precedes you. Please, call me Wade, he replied, gesturing for them to sit. I understand you're expanding into Asian markets and need comprehensive security solutions. As the meeting progressed, Wade noticed Rebecca studying him with unusual intensity. When Thomas stepped out to take a call, she spoke frankly. My father warned us about you. You know, she said. He said you destroyed the Powell family because they crossed you. Said you were dangerous. Wade's expression remained pleasant. Business can be dangerous when people mistake politeness for weakness. The Powells made that mistake. And what happened to them? That was just business. No, Wade admitted. That was personal. Business is what we're discussing today. Thomas returned, and the meeting continued smoothly. They agreed to terms, contracts were prepared, and the Carlyles left with assurances that Hastings Security would protect their global interests. After they departed, Dominic entered with a concerned expression. The Carlyles are connected to half the old money families in the city. If they're spreading stories about the Powells, let them, Wade replied. Fear is a more reliable motivator than respect. Let them whisper about what happened to the last family that tried to take what's mine. That evening, as Wade drove home, he received a call from an unlisted number. Mr. Hastings? This is Diana Bradford, Nolan's mother. Wade's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Mrs. Bradford, what can I do for you? My son is being released next month. Her voice trembled slightly. The terms of his parole forbid him from returning to the security industry or contacting any former associates. Those terms are non-negotiable. I'm not calling to negotiate, she said firmly. I'm calling to thank you. Wade's brow furrowed. Thank me. Nolan told me everything. About the affair, the corporate espionage, what they planned to do to you. He said you could have pushed for the maximum sentence, but didn't. That wasn't mercy, Mrs. Bradford. It was calculation. Perhaps. But he's had time to reflect on his choices. He wanted me to tell you he understands now why you did what you did. After hanging up, Wade continued driving, the city lights blurring as he considered how completely he had remade his world. The betrayal had transformed him, burning away whatever softness remained from his younger days. At home, he found Layla Nash waiting in his study. His legal counsel had become one of his few trusted confidants over the past year. The final transfers are complete, she reported. The trust funds for Terrence and Vivian Powell are irrevocable but contingent on their continued silence. They'll never be wealthy again, but they won't starve. And Brooke? Layla hesitated. She sent another letter. I've screened it like the others. Wade gestured for her to continue. She's not asking for money this time. She's requested permission to write a memoir about your marriage and its aftermath. She says she wants to tell her side. Denied, Wade said immediately. The non-disclosure agreement is absolute. There's more, Layla added reluctantly. She's pregnant. For months along. She says the father is her boyfriend, the real estate broker. Wade absorbed this information without visible reaction. Ensure the child will be provided for. Anonymously. No connection to me. Of course. Layla studied him. It's been a year, Wade. You've won. Completely. But at what cost? Everything, he acknowledged. And it was worth it. Later, alone in his study, Wade opened a small safe behind a painting and removed a velvet box. Inside was his wedding ring, which he hadn't worn since the night of Vivian's birthday party. Beside it was a photograph of him and Brooke on their wedding day, both smiling, his arm around her waist, her hand on his chest. He closed the box and returned it to the safe. That life was gone, and so was the man who had lived it, the man who believed in love, in family, in second chances. In his place stood someone harder, colder, and utterly alone at the pinnacle of his power. The next morning, Wade called a meeting of his executive team. As they assembled around the conference table, Dominic, Layla, Santos, and other trusted lieutenants, he laid out his vision for the company's future. We've spent a year rebuilding from betrayal, he began. Now we expand. New markets, new services, new acquisitions. The Powell incident has actually improved our reputation in certain circles, Dominic noted. Clients know we protect our information at all costs. And avoid our vengeance, Layla added quietly. Wade nodded. Let that be our unspoken promise to anyone who considers crossing us. Loyalty is rewarded generously. Betrayal is punished absolutely. As the meeting concluded and his team dispersed, Wade remained at the head of the table, contemplating the empire he had defended and expanded. He had lost his wife, his in-laws, his ability to trust, but he had kept what mattered most: his company, his power, his reputation. He thought briefly of Brooke, pregnant and starting a new life in Arizona, of Terrence and Vivian, living on his charity in Florida, of Nolan, about to be released to a world where his skills were now useless. They had all underestimated him, mistaking his ambition for arrogance, his determination for delusion. They had seen only the construction worker's son playing at being a business titan. They never understood that men like Wade Hastings, men who built their strength through resistance, couldn't be broken by betrayal. They could only be tempered by it, made harder, sharper, more dangerous. Wade Hastings had entered the Powell world as an outsider, an uninvited guest in their privileged lives. He had emerged as something else entirely, a man who no longer needed anyone's invitation or approval, a man who had learned the true cost of trust and decided it was too high to pay again. And as he looked out at the city he now controlled more completely than ever before, Wade Hastings felt the cold satisfaction of a battle decisively won, even if victory had left nothing but ashes in its wake. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video